seen things you people wouldn't believe. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die.
Decades ago, in a Parisian antiquarian bookshop in the Quartier Latin, I encountered a reproduction of a curious triptych in a worn art book whose author I no longer remember. The image has persisted with me ever since, a visual syllogism juxtaposing two incompatible architectures of the human condition. The first panel presented a schematic rendering of B.F. Skinner's behavior box, an engineered environment featuring lights, a lever, a metal grid, and the promise of food to a trapped animal. The second reproduced a passage from Crime and Punishment, in which Raskolnikov defends his disturbing theory that an extraordinary man may commit an inevitable crime in the service of humanity. The third panel was the most perplexing, a parody of Grant Wood's American Gothic. In this iteration, B.F. Skinner and Dostoevsky occupied the unlikely roles of the farmer and his wife, as though the author wished to suggest that in his triptych he was marrying two irreconcilable cosmologies within a single image. Intrigued though I was, I initially dismissed the anachronism as ludicrous. Yet the image refused to fade, returning over the years with the persistence of an unresolved dream. That the 19th century should give us Dostoevsky, a chronicler of the conscience, and the 20th Skinner, the architect of operant conditioning, might not have been a historical accident. I have since tried to reconstruct the impossible poster in order to decipher it. This essay is that attempt. In the 1930s, while still a graduate student at Harvard, B.F. Skinner constructed a small, unassuming chamber that would become one of the most influential instruments in modern psychology. Later dubbed the Skinner box, a term he himself abhorred, it was designed to reveal how behavior changes when the consequences of an action are immediate. The box itself is simple. A soundproof shell of metal and plexiglass seals the animal from all distraction. Inside, a rat, or pigeon, encounters only a few salient features. A lever sensitive to the faintest touch, a small dispenser capable of delivering a food pellet, a grid of metal rods that can administer a mild shock, a loudspeaker that emits an aversive sound, and lights that signal when reinforcement is at hand. Every element links action to consequence. Press the lever and a meal appears, or the unpleasant alarm ceases. Press it under the wrong conditions and an electrical shock arrives instead. Subject to such rewards and quiet punishments, the animal learns quickly, one trial at a time, that its behavior matters. It cannot negotiate or appeal. It can only act and discover what follows. In this chamber, no larger than a shoebox, Skinner uncovered principles that would later illuminate everything from the formation of childhood behavior to the fantastic compulsions of adulthood. Yet for all its influence, the Skinner box is revealing in another sense. In a world where every choice is immediately answered, moral agency would be inconceivable. Such a world, Athanasius tells us, existed in Eden. In the presence of God, good and evil were answered at once, joy or anguish arriving with absolute immediacy. The consequences of sin could not be deferred, as Adam and Eve discovered when the infamy of their transgression drove them to hide from the all-searching eye of God. The forbidden fruit could therefore be eaten only during a withdrawal of His presence. Were we still in that paradise, any sin would overwhelm us with instant pain, while obedience would saturate us with joy. The nexus between act and consequence would be as unyielding as the circuit of a Skinner box. The ancients solved the paradox with a veil. Moses' tabernacle and Solomon's temple possessed one, shielding the sinner from the terrible majesty of God. Yet the veil performs another office. It conceals the immediate consequences of our acts. Without it, life would be reduced to a cage of rewards and punishments. Behavior would be governed not by conviction, but by the tyranny of consequence. Skinner believed that freedom was a fiction, a polite name we give to the statistical drift of reinforcement. Dostoevsky embraced the opposite with equal fervor. His answer was crime and punishment. In it, Raskolnikov, an impoverished former student, resolves to test his theory that an extraordinary man may overstep moral law for the sake of society. To prove it, he murders Alyona Ivanovna, a miserly pawnbroker who preys upon the poor. She lends money at ruinous rates, hoards wealth, and contributes nothing in return. Her capital, Raskolnikov reasons, could nourish students, widows, and children, lives more valuable than her own. But the theory collapses the instant Lizaveta, Alyona's pregnant sister, enters the room. She sees him with the bloodied axe. Raskolnikov kills her in panic. Lizaveta's death cannot be rationalized. She is the variable the Skinner box cannot account for. In the context of the triptych, what is striking is not the crime itself, but the silence that follows it. Nothing happens. No alarm sounds. No authority intervenes. No cosmic punishment descends at once. The world offers Raskolnikov no immediate consequence at all. It is precisely in this delay that Dostoevsky locates remorse. Because the external world refuses to answer him, the consequence shifts inward into fever, paranoia, revulsion, and the slow crumbling of the idea that justified the murder. Raskolnikov learns, agonizingly, that moral consequence is not abolished because it is postponed. In the ancient gap between act and outcome, the silent horror of God's justice reveals itself. Over the years, what intrigued me most was neither the machine nor the novel, but the thought that both men, separated by geography and centuries, were unknowingly circling the same mystery: how suffering shapes choice. The Kabbalists came closest to answering that riddle, though none invoked Skinner by name. They taught that the God of Abraham refuses to mechanize moral freedom. Persuasion, invitation, even trial, these are his methods, but never coercion. In the drama of premortality, Moses recounts, the accuser offered a perfected Skinner box. Reward without agency, salvation without risk. A system of levers in which the agency of man is exchanged for certainty. A world in which every subject finds its meal. It costs us nothing to think that this is why Dostoevsky rejected determinism long before it hardened into dogma. In the crucible of Siberian exile or the remote clarity of his epileptic visions, he understood that a soul without freedom is a soul without significance. Postscript. I have searched for the art book for years in libraries and catalogs without success. Perhaps it no longer matters. The triptych has endured in interpretation, where all things, books, images, even the gods, are justified by the one who reads.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears.